Hi, Chris.
Hi, how are you?
Good. It's so amazing to see your face.
I know.
I think how
Me
long have we
too.
we've been connecting for maybe over 6 months, right? Since the beginning of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
year.
Yeah, I
And
think
we've been trading emails and I've read two of your books at least. And I don't know if that's all of them. So I'm excited to learn more about you. Let's just dive in and tell me what kind of books you write, what kind of author you are. Yeah, go for
sure.
it.
Yeah, so all my books are based in mythology. I'm a bit of a mythology geek. Like I was the kid in high school who loved the Odyssey. you know and so my I have a YA fantasy series out based on Greek sirens. They are not mermaids, they are bird women. And it's the whole premise is, if the sirens had daughters, what would those daughters be going through in today's world? So it starts off with Corinna. She is a 17-year-old junior in high school, whose voice has killed in the past. And through the course of the book, she figures out that she is a siren, and not just any siren, but of course the one who is to save all the rest of the sirens and the world. Um, so yeah, it's lots of fun. I also have an adult fantasy series out that is based in mythology, but it all happens on an island that's a safe haven for all mythicals. So we go into like all different kinds of myths of like Norse, Greek, Aztec, Egyptian. It's tons of fun.
Wow, that sounds amazing. How did you start writing?
Well, I wrote my first book in third grade. And yeah, I've been a huge reader all my life, and rediscovered writing when I was after I got married. And yeah, so I've been writing for about 12 years now. So yeah.
And so it sounds like you know tons about mythology, but for each new book you write, do you do more research to learn, like just keep learning?
Yeah, so it depends. Yes. So like in my siren series, the sirens were actually the handmaidens of Persephone. And Persephone, when she was kidnapped by Hades, Persephone's mother Demeter cursed the sirens with wings so that they could search the earth to find her daughter. And so I was able to, find that really cool connection. And like through that, like, yeah, I go in, like, I'll follow like little trails in the mythology, and figure out like all these different, um, kind of obscure connections, that aren't like the big popular myths. And that's what's fun for me, is finding those really obscure questions. Like Helena Troy called out to the sirens to come and save her. And so like that's like another little connection that not a lot of people pick up on, and it's a ton of fun. So yeah, so I do a little bit of research with my siren series. Now my Muse Island series, which is the adult fantasy series, there's a ton of research because there's all these different myths. So we play a lot in that series with the idea of chaos being creation and destruction. And so it's really cool because in every single myth, it's all based on that you must have chaos in order to have creation. You must have destruction in order to have new growth. And so it's really cool to see all those kind of crossovers between mythologies that have nothing to do with each other. So anyways, that's really exciting for me.
That is cool. Like, yeah, that dyad and that
Mhm.
opposition of first you have to break something down to create something new, or first you have to, yeah,
Yeah,
cause chaos
exactly.
to make change, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not so much the, good versus evil or dark versus light. It's that you from destruction comes creation. Like, so anyways, it's a really cool thing to play with.
I will definitely have to look that series up as well. And when I read, and so which book is first? I think it's Song of Destiny is first,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, when I read that one, I don't know if it was so much that one or the Song of the Wings, the second one. Yeah, I definitely was like, okay, because I know nothing about Greek mythology. I was like looking everything up. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna look this up and I'm gonna learn this. So I think that's one thing the book did for me. Like I was like, okay, this is really cool. Like I want to
Yeah.
know like where she took this from and what she's taken and where she started and where she took it off from. So I think that
Oh,
was
I love that so much.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
so
was
I'm
really
actually re-releasing Song of Destiny with a Greek mythology index in it. So yeah, so you'll be able to see, and 'cause what I've heard from my readers is like, how do you say that name? I'm like, I don't really know. I know how it's spelled. And so like I'll have to go look at the pronunciation. So it'll have like in the back of it, it'll have like the connections between all the different like relationships that are so messed up in Greek mythology is so much fun. And it'll have, you know, just a reference so you can know who is Echidna and who is Phorcys and who are these like weird names that I've never heard of before and like what significance do they have like in the greater mythology universe. So that will be releasing this November. Along with book 3 of the series, which is Song of Curses. So,
and that's a really good idea. I think that's a great idea to put that Greek mythology stuff in the back, because I was like constantly on my phone and going back and forth. And it's interesting you talk about how you pronounce names, because I had a character's name in one of my book and I just pronounced it how I wanted to, and then everybody else was pronouncing it different, and it's coming up to do the audiobook for it. And I'm like, how do I actually want to do this? Should I do it the traditional way or the way that was playing in my head?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then you've got to work with like the reader's belief system, like it's already like integrated in, like, and so I can't remember what book I was reading, but it was that same thing. I read the book and then I went back and listened to the audiobook and I was like, I've been saying his name wrong the entire time.
And will this book 3 be the finale of the series?
No, there's going to be 5 books total.
Oh, wow.
So
Very
yeah, I'm hoping to finish the series by the end of next year. But we will just have to see, because this has been a weird 2 years.
I think it has for everyone. Do you write both series at the same time? Do you keep both of them going?
No. So I actually co-write the second series, the Muse Island series. I co-write it with one of my friends, who's an amazing author. She's an award-winning author in her own right. Yeah, so what I do normally is I'll write one of my Sirens Call books, and then while that's resting, then I'll go and we'll draft a Muse Island book, and then we'll flip flop, we'll let that book rest, and then we'll go and work on our own like singular projects that we have.
Neat. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, because otherwise the voices kind of like seep into each other. It's really hard to keep them separate. Like if I have Corinna in my head, I cannot go and write Piper Prince, who is the main character in our other series, because they're 2 very different personality types.
So tell me more about Piper Prince.
Oh, okay. So she is a forensic psychologist. Like she works with the criminally insane. And her most disturbing patient, his name is Ari Fox. When she's with him, like things are just like not normal in her world. He ends up escaping and gives her clues to her life, because she was adopted. Her and her sister were adopted, and she's never known, it was a closed adoption. They've never known anything. And somehow Ari has access to her birth certificate. And so it leads her to this island called Muse Island. It's unbeknownst to her, it's a safe haven for all mythical beings. It's beautiful. It's got pink sands everywhere. It's just like if you could imagine your perfect paradise, like that's what this place is. And she ends up meeting this bartender. He's turns out to be a genie. And he will always give her the drink that she needs, not necessarily the drink that she wants. So if she's like having a bad day, he'll show up with her grandmother's tea, just the way her grandmother made it, instead of the glass of wine she thought she wanted. So anyway, so Piper goes to this island and slowly realizes that mythical beings are real and she can see them all. Whereas normal humans, they look like mythical people, just look like normal people. Yeah, so it's a bit of a suspense thriller slash detective book, in which Piper ends up becoming a supernatural detective. So it's kind of got that amateur sleuth thing going on, and yeah, it's so much fun. Like we've had so much fun with it. Like if we could move to Muse Island, we would totally move to Muse Island.
I was gonna say that sounds like, so is she mythical herself?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't want to give that away.
Yeah. So I mean, come on, you figured that out pretty quickly. But yeah, so she has a birthmark on her leg in the shape of a sun. And whenever she is near a mythical creature, it heats up. And her patient, Ari, the reason why he is in this prison for the criminally insane is because he has been collecting those marks off of people so that he can, that's like, so he's like a serial killer. And so, yeah, so she's got like a really close connection to him. And he has a lot of fun playing with her. So yeah, I don't want to give away anything else, but it's a really fun series. Like you should read it. It's so much fun.
That does sound like a lot of fun. And I'm so bad about characters being truly evil. Like I had a character that was supposed to be an evil character, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't make him evil. So in my mind, Ari's not really guilty. There's some other reason of something going on. Because if you get to know someone this well, you can't make him truly evil, right?
Yeah, no. And so I love writing those kinds of characters, the ones that you hate to love to hate, like when you first meet them, you think, oh, this guy's bad. But then you start like getting down to those layers that like you start understanding like, oh, I see why he's like this now. It's kind of like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Bones? No.
I haven't, yeah, that's the only vampire series like that I haven't read. So I will.
Well, it's a TV series.
Right. It's the only one I haven't watched or read. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you have homework.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, so somebody challenged me because I'd watched all the Vampire Diaries, and somebody challenged me to read all the books. So now I'm on book 4 of that, and I'm listening to the audiobooks, which is good because I can do that faster. But so yeah, but then I'm like hesitating because they're so different. So but at least it's just a TV series. So
it's just a TV series. And what I love about it is it truly owns its own campiness. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can, like, they do things on purpose. Like it's funny in that way. And so you can kind of fall in love with these characters but it still has like a great storyline and amazing character development. Like who these characters are at the beginning of the series are definitely not who they are by the end. And it's got that gut-wrenching factor to it. And then of course slaying vampires, because that's fun. But then also it goes into what we were just talking about. It lets you get to know these so-called bad monsters, and maybe they really aren't. So I highly recommend it. It's not like highbrow, but it's still a lot of fun.
I don't have to have highbrow, definitely. So how many books are in your Piper series?
So right now we have 4 out. We're planning on releasing 9, maybe a bonus 10th. So,
and we also can they be read as standalones? Do they like wrap up in one book, or are they like really more continuous?
It's more continuous. I would definitely start with book 1. We do have a few short stories out that are kind of prequels on the different characters that are in the books. And so we have a few of those out, but I would still recommend at least reading book 1 before you even started with those, because you won't have the context. But book 1 is really the place to begin.
And that is Island of the Muse, right?
It is. The first book is called Mark of the Gods.
Okay.
It's part of the Muse Island series.
Muse Island. Okay. Just wanted to make sure for our listeners we were tagging those. For people who are watching, you're seeing 2 of the covers of her YA fantasy book, Song of Destiny and Song of Wings. And those are the ones that I've read so far. Those are the ones that I loved because they were such new characters for me. I never read a Faryn book. So I love the way you integrated, well, I'm a fan of urban fantasy anyway, and I love the way you integrated her high school life, but took her out of that in some instances. Yeah, and in the second book, I definitely love the way he brought back in some of the characters as well, because I was scared they were gone forever, but they weren't.
No, that's her little, it's her family. So they'll be there throughout. The third book in the series is a bit different because she actually ends up going into enemy territory for the majority of the book. And I just actually shared the first scene with my newsletter subscribers. And so, yeah, it's been super fun. And again, it's been all that stuff we've been talking about is unraveling the bad guy and why is he the way he is. And so that's what Song of Curses does, is we get to know the other side, and why they make the decisions that they make, and are they really that evil. So it's been so much fun to write. I think this is my favorite book so far. Yeah, it is.
Very cool. Yeah, I just finished writing my second Fae fantasy, which is in a Realm Chronicles series about fairies. And yeah, and my head, I did put some goddesses in there, so you'll be interested to know that. I put a couple of goddesses in there because I can't, like, I just hit the end and just did it to my editor, so I'd have to find my cheat sheet to see what I did. But it was yeah, the three of the goddesses, one was like, no, I can't even remember. One was knowledge. I don't know. One was faith. I don't know. I'd have to look them up because I see this and my mind is already on the next book.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, which is good. Like, it's nice to be able to just like, okay, I'm done with that book. I've got to move on to the next. Yeah.
Why it's fresh in my mind and why I'm thinking about what should come next. But are you going to have flashbacks to show why the evil characters are the way they are, or are they just going to tell their story, or how do you do that?
Because she's in enemy territory, and Krina is a person that, like, she doesn't know a stranger. Like, she has to get to know people. Like, she just can't help it. And so she's in this place surrounded by all these people, creatures that she has sworn to fight. And in order to survive, she has to find a way to make allies. So yeah, you get to understand a bit more of the other side's story by her making these allies and realizing that monsters are not monsters. They are sentient creatures who have families and love and fears and everything else that we would experience. And so she's got to come to terms with that. So that's really how we get to know the other side a little bit, is, through her eyes, well, and through Jared's eyes too.
Okay, fun. Yeah, because one thing I did in my prior series, which is connected to the Fairies Realm Chronicle series, is I just went back and did a prequel, so that, like, I wrote 3 books, and then I thought, these people really need more background on who these evil characters are and the history of these evil characters being evil. So I went back and did that. It's a prequel, but it's after the 3rd book, and then the 4th book was the finale. So I'm thinking, like, and that was just history, right? That it wasn't even why the bad person started doing all these bad things. So now I'm like, well, do I write a prequel to the prequel, or how do I weave that in? So all these things in my head.
Yeah. I think that it's fun to handle that in different ways. Like, I really enjoy books that have the dual timelines. So, like, it jumps. So you have like that kind of flashback thing.
Right.
But then also it's kind of fun just to, like, read a story that it's completely buried in that past. And then you can see, like, because you know where it's going, you, like, see all the warning flags before before everything goes bad. Yeah. So that's fun too. I just like story, I just like story and getting to know characters and why they do what they do.
I know. If you're like me, I'm constantly, when I'm driving, people are like, how do you have so much time to do all this? I'm like, when I'm driving, I'm thinking about my books. Or when I'm at the grocery store, that's what I'm doing. When I'm cleaning my house, that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. I was talking to one of my author friends the other day, and she was saying, I feel bad because I haven't written in a while, but I think about my story nonstop. I'm like, that's 80% of the work. you brainstorming and immersing yourself in that world and who those characters are, and then next problem that's coming their way, like that's 80% of the work. The writing comes after you've done all that. At least I think it does. Because if you just sat down and just started writing with nothing in your head, oh my gosh, there would be so many rewrites that would have to happen.
Definitely. My problem is I was writing a romance, but then I was like, no, I want to go with the fairies. So then when I am coming back, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll intersperse this romance back in. And I had like thought of like all these scenarios for those romance. So in my head, I'd already written those down, and I went back and read what I'd written, and I hadn't written any of them down. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should actually write them down now, because they're going to be gone in 6 more months. So,
yeah.
Right.
Yep.
The fun of writing for me, and you can say whether this is true for you or not, is that creative part. So sometimes I get bored if I already know what's going to happen.
Yep.
Like, so I have to get all of it down and then get to a point where, okay, I don't know what happens next. And then that makes it fun again for me.
Right. So the way I write is I start with just kind of like a quick structured outline. Like I know, like I want to hit this point, this point, this point, this point, but I don't necessarily know how I'm getting from, to and from each of those things. And a lot of times, like I'll write that particular scene because it's just in my head. I know exactly how I want it to go. And then I just like put a bunch of space between that scene and like where I actually am. And so it's more fun for me just to like write to that and to connect it. So yeah, and I know of authors who like, they have to know every single thing that happens before they start writing. And like their outlines are like 100 pages long. That is so not me. Like it's half a page, maybe, that my outline is before I even begin. Because yeah, I like that kind of the magic of discovery that happens whenever you're writing, because you get to go really cool ways with it.
I think, yeah, my system is very much like yours. Like I draw a little plot graph and I put things on the points, and then, then I come back and weave them in together. So.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and actually, what's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so actually, I'm almost done with Song of Curses, and I just realized, like, because there was this one scene that wasn't like quite working for me. I'm like, okay, this is supposed to be some sort of climax, and it's not. And if I try to make it more climaxy, it's going to feel forced. And so I went back and read what I had written. I'm like, oh, I already wrote the climax. Like it happened like 2 chapters ago. I'm like, oh, I'm further in this book than I thought I was.
That's good.
Yeah, it is. But also it's really cool how the subconscious works, because what I had written without even realizing it was much more in line with what I needed it to be. And it was much more organic to the story. And it was a natural climax versus me trying to force something in. And so it allowed the book to be what it's supposed to be versus me trying to like stay to some sort of story structure that I needed to follow. So yeah, it's just, I think the subconscious is so cool because my brain did that without me realizing it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So is writing your full-time job, or do you have another full-time job? And if so, did those two cross over? Do you like pull things in from your real life? Not real life.
Yes.
I should say
So
real life.
I definitely have a day job. I'm lucky that I get to work from home. My husband and I own our own business, and I do like digital marketing and content writing. So I wouldn't say they cross over too much, other than I get to write in both of them. But yeah, my clients are more like lawyers and doctors. They don't really appreciate the creative flair that I could add to. Yeah. So, and I think it's good because I think, and I have had a point in my life where I was just trying to write full time, and it was hard for me because not having the limited time to write and just like having like this unlimited time to like get things done. Like I didn't actually get very much done. Whereas now, like, I'm like, okay, the pressure's on. I've got an hour and a half to write, and that's all I got. And yeah, so it works for me.
Nice. Well, I think just writing in general, all those skills are going to go into you marketing yourself. And I mean, it's a whole business. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what's hard for so many authors, because most of us just want to sit down and write. Like we just want to tell stories. But now we've got to be every single part of what a publisher is. Like we're everything. And I think that, yeah, it would be nice just to be able just to write, but also the other stuff is fun too.
Very nice. This is the question I love asking my author guests. So what do you want your readers to come away from? And those could be 2 different answers with your 2 different series. So take a few seconds to think about it. But what do you want your readers to feel or come away from with your book?
I think with my Siren series, it's that you're stronger than you know, and that it doesn't matter what happened in your past. You can always be better than what you were. And you never have to lose hope for what your future can be. And with my Muse Island series, I think that it's don't judge.
Interesting.
Yeah, don't judge. Everyone has a history, everyone has a story. You don't know what anyone else is truly going through. And so, yeah, just have grace with people.
Well, I think that probably comes through in your Siren series as well, because you talk about the bad guys and how she's going to get to know some of their past and understand them. But I definitely could relate with you can always do better. It's okay, whatever happened in your past, and Karina, because she definitely is young and she makes some mistakes and she regrets some things, but she just keeps plodding forward. And
she does. She's really good about keeping on moving forward.
Yes.
Despite the advice of others. And
sometimes I was a little frustrated with her. I have to say that. So because that I tend to be more of a thinking person than maybe that comes with age and maturity too.
Yeah, no, she just kind of leaps into situations and she gets called out on it. It's definitely part of her learning process, because sometimes it's great just to go for it, and other times you really do need to sit back and kind of analyze all angles. And so she's still learning that.
Yeah, some of my characters have been called out as like people not loving them. I'm like, well, they are what they are, because
they are what they
are.
Well, and I think too, having other characters call out your main character on those things like certainly helps readers to see that, like, okay, she's working on it. Nobody's perfect, and our characters definitely should not be perfect. That would be so boring.
Yeah, no. Definitely. Well, this has been so great talking to you, Kris. Let's tell all of our listeners and our watchers where we can find you and your book.
Okay, well, you can find me at krisfaryn.com. It's KrisFaryn.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and Goodreads.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun talking to you.
You as well.
Okay, bye.
Bye.